Hi guys, welcome back after the break. As you know, we're talking about Spanish foreign policy, and obviously we have to talk about Islamic counterterrorism because that's been actually setting the agenda for most Western countries. And Islamic counterterrorism is something that is, well, I mean, not that new anymore. I mean, we're talking about 20 years ago. Obviously, September 11 had a huge impact on Islamic counterterrorism in the US. Those events were actually the 2004 attacks in Madrid that we've already mentioned in this class, where all 193 people lost their lives, and actually those attacks deeply impacted the elections that were taking place 3 days after. And from that day, also Spain started developing more focused Islamic counterterrorism policy, and in two different fields. We can separate between the domestic tools that we developed, and also on the other hand, we have the international cooperation. In domestic tools, first thing we have to say is that actually Spain did have an advantage that is that we had counterterrorism experience. So obviously, that terrorism we are talking about is from a different nature. Here we're talking about ETA. But decades of fighting a terrorist group allowed Spain to have the tools. And here we're talking about legal tools, but also the police resources and the intelligence resources to fight terrorism. However, the nature of this terrorism is completely different. On the one hand, we're talking about a nationalist, pro-independence movement, and that only attacks, targeted people. So we're talking about police forces, or we're talking about members of the judiciary or politicians. And on the other hand, we have a type of terrorism that is just wants to spread terror and just actually instantly kills whoever they can. So Spain did have that counterterrorism experience, and that was an advantage. However, from 2004, we had to readjust how this fight against terrorism was taking place. Something that actually helped quite a lot was a bipartisan consensus. Islamic counterterrorism is always been outside of the political agenda, actually not of the political agenda, but out of the political confrontation. And there's always been consensus, doesn't matter what color the government was, but there was a consensus between PP and PSOE historically in the different agreements, in different pacts that they signed to coordinate the Islamic, the counterterrorism fight. Next thing, it was actually a change in the criminal code. In 2015, the criminal code changed, including several more crimes related to terrorism. Also, a life sentence was introduced for these kind of crimes. This was something that did not exist before, but also this obviously helped in the fight against Islamic terrorism. And last but not least, we have to talk about CNI. CNI is kind of the Spanish CIA, is our national intelligence service, and Centro Nacional de Inteligencia. And CNI got more resources after 2004, and actually resources that were allocated to ETA after 2010 were relocated to Islamic counterterrorism. So obviously, this helped in the fight against terrorism. So what about international cooperation? Does it exist? Yes, but it's limited. And there are certain countries that Spain has a better relation regarding counterterrorism and the flow of information than others. Obviously, when we talk about international cooperation, we're talking about sharing information, or sharing any kind of data that you can have on terrorism, tracking subjects, actually police forces cooperation in within the judiciary. So all these obviously helps in the fight against Islamic terrorism. Is basic. It's actually a kind of terrorism that is not specifically from one single country. Actually, we do know that terrorists travel from country to country, and the network obviously goes beyond that. Obviously, here we're talking about a kind of terrorism, Al Qaeda. We are talking Al Qaeda that started in 1988 and how it mutated, and how from 2001 is the more current threat. 2004 attacks in Madrid, 2005 attacks in London, and then we have another period between 2015 and 2017 that they were active as well. So going back to international cooperation, sorry that I get lost talking. The first country that we have to refer to is France. Actually, the cooperation in counterterrorism with France is started with ETA. Actually, traditionally, members of ETA will travel to France to find shelter, but actually cooperation between the Spanish and French authorities in the 90s helped quite a lot in that fight. From that time, we established resources to cooperate in these kind of issues, and they were adapted regarding Islamic nature terrorism, counterterrorism. And here we're even talking about police forces carrying on combined operations, and so actually here the level of international cooperation is at its maximum level. Another country that I've already mentioned, actually I think I did in the previous class, that is really relevant regarding counterterrorism is Morocco. And Morocco has traditionally been since late 80s, 90s, intel source for Spain, and the other way around. Actually, the flow of intelligence goes both ways, and attacks in Morocco have been, by the end of the day, Morocco is indeed a Muslim country, but they do have because of not being a democracy, by the end of the day, they do have a strong grasp on security, and obviously their intel regarding counterterrorism is very important for Spain, because many of the cells do come from Morocco, the ones that that potentially could attack Spain. Actually, flow of intelligence between Morocco and Spain is strong. Also, the judiciary cooperation, etc., etc. And actually, these also affect migration. When we talked about migration, we talked about how important Morocco was for Spain in terms of controlling migration, and obviously, this also has an impact on counterterrorism. Last but not least, the European Union does have the tools to cooperate internationally, but the cooperation is sharing data, trying to coordinate police forces, but this cooperation obviously does not get to the point that we do have with France, and is still in the to-do list of the European Union further cooperating these issues to tackle this global threat. If we look at the data, at the figures of how how this effort has resulted, we have to say, we can see that after 2004, this is the number of arrests, this is the number of operations against Islamic terrorism, and we see that actually after 2004, after the attacks in Madrid, obviously the number of arrests grows. Then there's a time that declines around 2010, but then, as I was saying before, between 2015 and 2017, this number grows again. Now it seems that the threat is not as and I don't want to say real. It's not as big as it was between 2015 and 2017, but it's still there. The police forces are still carrying on counterterrorism operations, and these threat that you don't really know when it might actually be reactivated. But all in all, Islamic counterterrorism is still kind of a strategic aim for Spain that obviously has to be tackled internationally, and yeah, it's still part of the agenda, even though it seems like in the last 2 years, this situation has actually relax. Actually, I want to tell you that at the Universidad Pablo de la Vida, we have researchers that actually work on this field, that if you are interested on Islamic counterterrorism, just please let me know, send me an email, and I will get you in touch with the people that research about these issues at our university. So once again, see you on Wednesday. I wish you a good day today. Bye.